después de la Y, otra vez le ponemos 0. En vez de marcar en cada propuesta apoyo a la
My name is Ken. I am a community organizer for the Chinese Progressives Association. We are here this morning to push for progressive revenue in the city because year after year the city government cuts our services. That hurts all of our communities. And year after year we protest and we're like, stop cutting our services. But this year we decided to push for progressive revenue measures so that the folks who are making all the money in the city actually pay for their fair share for our services. We just launched a major report actually 2 weeks ago about the conditions of restaurant workers in Chinatown. Our 4-year study actually found that Chinatown restaurant workers are 50% of which don't get minimum wage in Chinatown, and also working conditions are like sweatshop conditions. So it was a huge report led by our worker leaders as well as researchers from UC Berkeley, and it brought to light a lot of the issues in Chinatown that sweatshops still exist in 2010 and in San Francisco, in one of the oldest neighborhoods in San Francisco.
So when you say the funding piece that you're working on with the city, is that one of the main things that people are phone banking about today? And how does that impact communities in poverty in Chinatown?
Yeah.
Specifically.
For sure. Specifically, we are calling on 3 propositions, Proposition J, N, and K. We're calling yes on J and N and no on K. Prop J is the Hotel Fairness Initiative that we're pushing that basically will make tourists who come to the city, who enjoy our services, who use our muni, who goes to see the Golden Gate Bridge, to pay for their share of upkeep for these services. Prop N is the property transfer tax or property transfer fee. So right now for buildings that are worth $5 million and $10 million and over, the transfer fee is something like 0.75%. It hasn't been raised in a long, long time. So this proposition calls for a raise to 2%, which will contribute annually around $30 million to the city government, right? So specifically how this affects our community is that we hear a lot of our members reflect on how poor the muni services nowadays, especially with cuts to the number of buses, the frequency that they run, and oftentimes the bus won't even stop in Chinatown because they see there's too many people at the stops, they just fly right by. So taking the bus in Chinatown can take hours, right? So this will hopefully, with this revenue increase, hopefully will add back some of the cuts that's been going on for the past couple of years for muni, and give accessibility to people who are coming into Chinatown to shop and bring the Chinatown economy back to where it should be.
Can you tell us a little bit about, I know CPA has a long history with, working for progressive, programs.
Yeah.
Just tell us about your work in terms of its impact on elders and how these propositions are going to affect elders specifically.
Right. A lot of our members are elderly Chinese folks, old-time immigrants, some new immigrants as well, that live in what's called SRO housing, so it's single-room occupancy hotels. So these are 12 by 12 rooms that sometimes house 4 or 5 people, families at a time, and the entire building shares bathroom, shares a kitchen. So, I mean, after a restaurant report came out, after our press conference, some reporters for mainstream media had a chance to go look at these housing, and they were like, oh my god, they were shocked at the living conditions that people in San Francisco, which is supposed to be this prosperous city, right, still lived in, and very close to downtown, to Montgomery Street. So their ignorance of this issue is not any news, but the fact that there are older Chinese folks that live in these conditions, and these buildings are dilapidated, there's not, the landlords don't really take care of them, is a serious issue that CPA has been active about since our very beginning, 37 years ago. So our approach is that a lot of these elderly folks also have families who are workers and also are workers themselves. So we organize workers to fight for their rights in these restaurants in order to get better living conditions. So the economic model in Chinatown is unsustainable, that they don't get minimum wage and therefore they don't have disposable income and therefore they can't contribute back to the economy. So it's really a vicious cycle, and the whole economy is built on catering tourists, right, which is not healthy for our community. So we're trying to change that through our worker organizing, through progressive revenue measures, and through all of our activism.
Yeah. And I don't think this is necessarily part of the media off the record on the revolutionary tip.
Yeah.
My concern with, for instance, corporate media going into the SROs is what does that result in, right?
Yeah.
They get torn down, and then 500 units for poor folks get napped.
Exactly.
As a person who's lived in SROs with my mama and then got evicted because of that.
Yeah. No, they were definitely they just rushed in there. It was like, oh my God, poor people.
Yeah,
oh my goodness.
Right.
Yeah. So it was.
Yeah. I'm not saying y'all were at fault.
Yeah,
That wasn't your plan.
But I mean, we've been talking about the need for improving housing conditions for a long, long time. And one of the contentious points that's going to come up in the future is the central subway, right? And how that's going to affect our community through gentrification, through building of new housing, people moving back into Chinatown,
right.
and where the direction that development is going. So we're still trying to figure that out politically ourselves, but we know that there's definitely going to be impact on our whole spectrum of membership. So we're very aware of that. We're hopefully going to fight. Well, we will fight for continue to fight for low-income Chinese folks.